Most people do not fail at compounding because the market is cruel. They fail because gravity is patient. You look at a tiny account, a tiny deposit, a tiny gain, and you think nothing is happening. You think the machine is broken. You think real wealth must begin with a dramatic raise, a six-figure bonus, a hot stock, a smarter entry point, a better year, a cleaner economy, a more convenient month. That is how gravity keeps you pinned to the ground. I have spent my life watching capital behave, and I can tell you something ordinary people do not like to hear. The beginning of wealth is not exciting. It is humiliating. It is a small transfer that feels too small to matter. It is an account balance that barely moves. It is a year of discipline that produces a result so unimpressive your neighbors would laugh at it. And that is exactly why so few people ever reach escape velocity. You have been trained to respect visible progress. Bigger paycheck, bigger car, bigger apartment, bigger applause. The market does not care about your appetite for visible progress. The market rewards survival first. It pays later. Most people demand the opposite. They want payment first, then patience. That trade never works. If you want to understand why so many hardworking people stay financially heavy their entire lives, stop thinking about money as a pile and start thinking about it as gravity. Every bill is gravity. Every impulse purchase is gravity. Every subscription you forgot to cancel is gravity. Every upgrade you make too early is gravity. Every month you delay investing because you want to start big instead of small is gravity. Every time you treat future capital like present spare cash, gravity smiles. The poor are not the only people trapped by this. The middle class is full of people who look stable and are still caught in the same field they earn. They spend, they recover, they repeat. Their lives are not collapsing, so they assume their trajectory is acceptable. What they do not notice is that their money never leaves the atmosphere of labor. Their income arrives from effort, and almost all of it burns up in consumption before it can become an asset. That is wage gravity. Wage gravity is what happens when your entire financial life depends on continuing to trade hours for cash while telling yourself you will invest seriously later. Later is the favorite word of broke adults. Later when the raise comes, later when the credit card is cleaner, later when inflation settles down, later when the election passes, later when the market looks safer, later when life feels less chaotic. I am going to tell you something harsher. Later is not a date. Later is gravity wearing a polite suit. I want you to picture a young man in his mid-20s working customer support in a noisy room, 40 hours a week, earning a little over $40,000 a year. After payroll deductions, he brings home roughly $2,600 a month. His rent takes a little over $1,100. Food and transportation take another $800 and something. By the time the month exhales, there is almost nothing left. Some months he is staring at $50. Some months a little less. He is not lazy. He is not reckless. He is simply close to the ground. That closeness matters. When you live close to the ground, every decision feels heavier than it mathematically is. A $40 restaurant tab is not just a meal, it is friction. A minor repair is not just an inconvenience, it is an orbital shock. A small market dip feels offensive because you already feel underfunded. People who mock small investors do not understand this. The first battle in compounding is not financial. It is emotional oxygen. That young man did not transform his life with a dramatic move. He did something far more powerful. He chose a number small enough that it would not trigger panic. Not an inspiring number, not a heroic number, a survivable number. He set an automatic investment just after the bills cleared. $30-something, an amount so modest that ambitious people would sneer at it and undisciplined people would underestimate it. That tiny transfer was not a wealth event. It was a break in the gravity field. That is where almost every important financial life actually begins, not with size. With repetition. If you are waiting to feel rich enough to begin, you are already losing. The first function of a deposit is not to grow capital. The first function is to change identity. It teaches your nervous system that not every dollar must be consumed, defended, or negotiated with. Some dollars are sent ahead. Some dollars are assigned to your future before your present self gets the chance to waste them. This is what I call escape money. Escape money is different from spending money, emergency money, or ego money. Escape money is the money you release from the custody of your current life so it can build a future life that does not need your full-time labor to survive. The amount matters less than the rule. Most people think small deposits are weak. I think inconsistent people are weak. $100 once is not as powerful as $30 every month for years. A dramatic start followed by emotional quitting is not ambition. It is theater. The early stage of compounding is where gravity conducts its psychological test. The account balance is small. The market moves it around by amounts that feel insulting. One day you are up $1. Another day you are down $3. You feel foolish. You could have spent that money on takeout, delivery, shoes, drinks, streaming, almost anything that gives you instant evidence you are alive. Instead, you bought invisible progress. Invisible progress is where adults with long futures separate from adults with short attention spans. You do not need more intelligence than the next person to compound wealth. You need more tolerance for delayed proof. That is rare. In the first months, the numbers give you almost no emotional reward. Your account looks like a puddle. The news is louder than your results. Inflation screams, recession screams, rally screams, rate scream, politics screams. Everything around you begs for reaction. Your little account whispers. That whisper is more valuable than the scream, but only if you are mature enough to hear it. This is the boredom barrier. The boredom barrier destroys more future millionaires than bad stock picks. Why? Because human beings are wired to overvalue what feels immediate and undervalue what compounds quietly. If you cannot survive boring progress, you will spend your life renting excitement and borrowing certainty. The young man I want you to keep in your head checked his account too often at first. Of course he did. Small investors tend to stare because they want reassurance, but reassurance is not what the early market gives you. It gives you fluctuation. It gives you ambiguity. It gives you almost no story you can tell your friends. So the right move was not bigger deposits. The right move was emotional demotion. He stopped asking the account to entertain him. He turned it into a bill. That was the first real victory. Once a deposit becomes a bill instead of a debate, you are no longer using motivation. You are using structure. Structure beats motivation because structure shows up on tired days. If you want a phrase to remember, remember this one. Motivation lifts. Structure launches. Months went by. The account crossed a few $100s. That is nothing to a rich man and everything to a person whose financial graph has never pointed in a better direction for long. Here is what outsiders miss. Small balances matter because they create evidence. Not evidence that you are wealthy. Evidence that you are no longer fully captured by consumption. That evidence changes the way you behave before it changes the way you look. Then life did what life, a car repair, a few $100s more than he wanted to see. This is where most compounding stories die. Not in a crash, not in a bankruptcy, in a routine interruption. A repair, a trip, a seasonal bill, a family ask, an ugly month. The investor empties the account, promises to start again, and gravity gets its money back. He did something different. He worked extra hours. He sold an old possession. He protected the account. Read that again because it matters more than any return chart you will ever see. He protected the account. That is the second stage. Seed protection, when your invested money stops feeling like available cash and starts feeling like planted capital. You stop seeing the account as an optional pool and start seeing it as a living system that must not be disturbed unless the house is truly on fire. A lot of people love the language of investing. Very few respect the boundaries required for investing to work. They want returns without separation. They want future wealth with present access. They want a tree that is always available for chopping, and still capital does not like that arrangement. The first years are cruel in one very specific way. They make discipline look unrewarded. You can contribute for a full year and have results so minor they barely cover a grocery run. That is not failure. That is physics. Early compounding is not designed to impress you. It is designed to test whether you understand time. Most people do not. They understand arithmetic. Put money in, get money back, fine. But wealth is built by time geometry, not simple arithmetic. $1 invested early does more work because it gets more years, more cycles, more dividend reinvestment, more recoveries, more doubling windows. Late money can still help you. Early money builds your army. I have said for years that the big money is not in the buying or the selling, but in the waiting. Ordinary people hear that and imagine waiting means sitting still. It does not. Real waiting is active. Real waiting means continuing to fund a machine that gives you almost no praise in the beginning and refusing to interrupt it. When the first decade feels unimpressive, that is adult waiting, not passive. Strategic. The young man kept increasing his monthly amount, but not with macho promises. He did it with tiny nudges. A few dollars when pay rose, a few dollars when overtime showed up, a tax refund with a piece sent forward instead of fully consumed. This is how sensible people scale, not with fantasy, with increments. Incremental behavior is vastly underrated because it does not photograph well. There is another reason small increases matter. They keep you below your panic threshold. Most financial plans fail because they are designed for a motivated mood, not for a tired life. You need a system that can survive your boring weeks, your annoyed weeks, your tempted weeks, your low-confidence weeks, your mildly chaotic weeks. If your plan requires constant enthusiasm, it is not a plan, it is a performance. So let me name another mechanism: panic threshold. Your panic threshold is the amount of investing or saving that feels noble in a spreadsheet and intolerable in a real month. Most people set their goals above that threshold, then call themselves undisciplined when they collapse. The smarter move is to begin below panic, automate it, then raise it slowly enough that your lifestyle adjusts without drama. That is not weakness. That is intelligent launch design. Now let us talk about the middle years, because this is where the machine becomes psychologically dangerous in a different way. After a few years, the account is no longer tiny, but it is not impressive either. It is big enough to tempt you and too small to make you feel secure. This is the danger zone, you think. Maybe I should use part of it. Maybe I should pause contributions and enjoy life a little more. Maybe I should wait until the economy looks better. Maybe I should chase something hotter. Maybe I should put this into a stock everyone is talking about so I can speed things up. This is the ego trap inside the gravity field. The account has finally become large enough to look useful. So your brain starts inventing reasons to interfere with it. That is when you need a harder rule, not a softer one. What keeps the machine alive is not optimism. It is sacredness. Some money must become sacred if you ever want financial gravity to weaken. I am not talking about superstition. I am talking about boundaries. Boundaries are what turn a habit into a system. When friends upgrade apartments, buy cars, They do not need or inflate every raise into a lifestyle announcement. You need an inner scorecard strong enough to stay a year behind your income. That gap between what you could afford and what you actually choose is where fuel accumulates. People think wealth is built by earning more than other people sometimes. But more often, wealth is built by letting your lifestyle lag your earning power long enough for capital to gain mass. Mass changes everything. In the beginning, your deposits are doing almost all the lifting. Later, the asset base starts helping. Then one day, if you have stayed in long enough, something emotionally profound happens. The account grows more from return than from contribution. That moment is one of the great turning points in a financial life. I call it the handoff line. Before the handoff line, you are pushing the machine. After the handoff line, the machine starts pulling you. This does not mean you can stop contributing. It means the relationship changes. Your labor is no longer the only engine in the room. Your capital has become a coworker. Think about how radical that is for most of your life. Every meaningful dollar came from effort. Hours, attention, stress, travel, management, deadlines, customers, fatigue. Then one day you open an account and realize a quiet pile of assets produced more than you personally added in a month. Maybe eventually in a year. That is not just growth. That is a transfer of burden. You are moving from pure effort to assisted trajectory. And once you feel that, even once, your understanding of money changes permanently. Now you begin to understand why the rich seem calmer. Not because they are morally superior. Often they are not. Not because markets are easier for them. They are not. They are calmer because they own mass. Their capital has inertia. It keeps moving even when they are resting, grieving, traveling, sleeping. The worker without assets cannot imagine how powerful that is because wage gravity trains you to believe nothing happens unless you are personally straining. That belief is one of the most expensive lies in modern life. Here is another one. People say they want financial freedom. Most of them do not. What they actually want is emotional relief without behavioral change. They want the feeling of safety without the years of apparent under-reward. They want the later stage of compounding without the early stage of boredom. Identity, conflict, peer comparison, and habit defense. That is like wanting orbit without launch. Launch is violent. Launch is expensive. Launch looks inefficient from the ground. But without launch, you stay on the ground. The source of your future freedom is not brilliance. It is your willingness to endure a phase where the outside world cannot yet see what you are building. That is why envy is so dangerous. Envy pulls your eyes toward visible consumption precisely when your life most needs invisible accumulation. The market cannot compound money you already spent to look successful. Wealth is what you do not show. More importantly, wealth is what allows you to say no. That is where this story gets bigger than retirement balances and account screenshots. The true prize of compounding is refusal power. Refusal power means you can turn down a bad boss, a manipulative client, a humiliating offer, a desperate sale, a panicked decision, a predatory loan, an unhealthy dependency. The person with no assets has very little refusal power. The person with growing assets has more of it each year. That is why the first 1,000 matters. That is why the first 10,000 matters. That is why the first moment your account meaningfully helps carry your life matters. Every step upward weakens the blackmail power of the present. Do not misunderstand me. I am not saying a small account turns you into a king. I am saying it changes the slope. It changes the direction of dependence. It changes whether the next decade belongs entirely to your employer or increasingly to your own capital allocation. That shift begins embarrassingly small, which is exactly why most people miss it. They think if the first months do not look impressive, the strategy must be wrong, but the first months are not there to impress you. They are there to harden you. Boredom hardens you. Consistency hardens you. Protecting a tiny balance hardens you. Choosing a small automatic transfer over a visible reward hardens you. Saying no to lifestyle creep hardens you. Watching the market wiggle and not touching the system hardens you. This hardening process is wealth formation. The numbers come later. And yes, the late years do the heavy lifting. That should not discourage you. It should discipline you. If most lifetime investment growth arrives late in the journey, then the most important years are often the years that feel least rewarding. Those are not throwaway years. Those are runway years. Runway years deserve respect. If you squander your runway because the plane has not lifted yet, do not blame compounding. Blame impatience. Let me go further. There are really 4 kinds of people in the world when it comes to wealth. The first kind never starts. Gravity owns them from the beginning because they worship perfect timing. The second kind starts and stops. Gravity taxes them through inconsistency. The third kind starts, protects, and continues long enough to cross the handoff line. These people build real financial muscle. The fourth kind does all of that and keeps their lifestyle below their rising capacity long after they could afford to loosen. These are the people who wake up one day with extraordinary optionality and look strangely ordinary from the outside. If you want to know which group you are drifting toward, do not inspect your intentions. Inspect your automation. Your calendar tells the truth. Your transfers tell the truth. Your recurring habits tell the truth. Your account boundaries tell the truth. This is why I care so much about systems. Systems reveal what values survive contact with ordinary life. Anybody can feel responsible for 2 days. A serious person creates a channel through which money flows toward ownership, whether they are inspired or not. Ownership is the destination, not activity, not market gossip, not the illusion of sophistication, not endlessly optimizing your app layout. Ownership, an index fund, does not look glamorous. A broad collection of productive businesses rarely creates social excitement at a dinner table. But glamour is not the assignment. The assignment is to own productive assets long enough that the compounding engine develops mass. If your life is still fragile, keep it simple. Complexity is often what insecure people buy when they do not trust patience. A simple ownership system that survives 10 or 20 years beats an exciting strategy that survives 10 or 20 months. The man I described earlier did not win because he was financially flashy. He won because he stopped requiring the process to flatter him. He let the process be boring. He let it be small. He let it be repetitive. He protected the early seeds. He increased the fuel a little at a time. He stayed in his lane while others performed prosperity around him. Eventually, the account began to move in a way he could feel. Then it moved in a way he could respect. Then it moved in a way that changed how he negotiated with the world. That sequence matters. Feel, respect, power. Most people chase power immediately and never build the feelings or respect that come first. So they speculate, they lunge, they interrupt, they overspend, they reset, and gravity keeps billing them. You do not escape by lunging. You escape by accumulating enough disciplined mass that the laws of your financial life change. I want to address one more illusion before I leave you with the real test. A lot of people secretly believe they can always start later with bigger amounts and make up for lost time. Sometimes they can partially compensate. Usually they cannot replicate the early years they wasted. Time is not just another variable. Time is the field in which compounding multiplies. You cannot ask late dollars to do early dollars work. They arrive with fewer seasons, fewer recoveries, fewer reinvestments, fewer chances to mass. That is why your smallest early deposits can become some of your most valuable soldiers. They get more birthdays, they get more market cycles, they get more dividend loops, they get more distance from your labor. A person who laughs at a small early deposit does not understand multiplication through time. You should, because once you understand it, the question changes. You stop asking, is this amount impressive? You start asking, how many years of work can this dollar escape if I release it today? That is the right question. Here is another useful one. How much of your life is still trapped in immediate consumption because you have not built enough distance between income and lifestyle? That answer will tell you whether you are building freedom or just rehearsing it. And now the part most people avoid, the real choice is not between investing and not investing. The real choice is between two identities. You can remain a person whose money arrives, gets cornered by bills, gets softened by convenience, gets seduced by upgrades, and disappears back into gravity month after month. Or you can become a person who sends part of every paycheck beyond the reach of your current appetites, protects those early seeds with unreasonable seriousness, and keeps feeding a quiet machine until the machine starts carrying you. One identity buys relief now and dependence later. The other accepts mild discomfort now and compounds power later. Choose carefully, because this choice does not announce itself with drama. It hides inside tiny transfers, delayed upgrades, ordinary rules, and boring months. That is why so many people miss the door. They are waiting for a cinematic moment. Wealth rarely arrives through cinema. It usually arrives through repetition that was too dull to brag about when it began. If you are still near the ground, do not be ashamed. Shame is useless, but confusion is expensive, so let me make this plain. Your first job is not to impress anyone. Your first job is to break the field. Your first $50 matters if it starts a system. Your first $100 matters if it survives interruptions. Your first year matters if it builds identity. Your first 5 years matter if they keep the engine alive. Your first decade matters because that is where most people surrender the future for lack of visible proof. Do not surrender there. Do not ask the first years to look magical. Ask them to make you unbreakable. Ask them to train your hands not to dig up what you planted. Ask them to teach you the difference between a paycheck and an asset. Ask them to build enough silent mass that one day your capital wakes up beside you and goes to work before you do. That day will not feel like luck. It will feel like delayed truth. And when it arrives, you will understand something the spenders, the dabblers, the quitters, and the spectators never fully learn. Money is not freedom because of what it buys. Money becomes freedom when it acquires momentum beyond your labor. That is escape velocity. Not being rich on paper, not looking successful, not timing some perfect trade. Escape velocity is the moment your assets begin to weaken the grip that necessity has had on your life. You do not reach that moment by waiting for confidence. You reach it by obeying a system before the rewards are obvious. So here is the final test. When your next paycheck arrives, will you send a piece of it forward before the world touches it, or will you once again hand the whole check back to gravity and call that normal? That is the door. Walk through it, or stay where the ground has been training you to stay.